Have a pleasant day to each and everyone. My name is Kriss Ann Flamiano, the reporter of Group 6, and now we will discuss the topic, which is
Chapter 6, Communication for Various Purposes.
Learning Outcomes. Convey ideas through oral, audiovisual, and/or web-based presentation for different target audiences in local and global settings using appropriate registers. Create clear, coherent, and effective communication materials. Present ideas persuasively using appropriate language registers, tone, facial expressions, and gestures, and adapt awareness of audience and context and presenting ideas. Discussion. The exchange of information or passing of information, ideas or thought from one person to the other or from one end to the other is communication. According to McFarland, communication is a process of meaningful interaction among human beings. More specifically, it is the process by which meanings are perceived and understandings are reached among human beings. Newman and Summer defined communication as an exchange of facts, ideas, opinions, or emotions by two or more persons. Communication is the process of passing information from one person to another. The purpose of communication understands of information. Whatever one wants to say to someone should be clearly understood by him, else the very purpose of the communication would be defeated. In an organization, communication facilitates the flow of information and understanding between different people and departments through different media using all the channels and networks. This flow of information is vital for managerial effectiveness and decision-making in general and for human resource manager in particular, as he has to be in contact with the managers of various departments, employees and workers, and trade union leaders. Communication thus helps understand people better, removing misunderstanding and creating clarity of thoughts and expression. It also educates people. The communication may be written or oral, formal, informal, and upward, downward, horizontal, diagonal, interpersonal, interpersonal, interdepartmental, and intra-organizational. The communication brings people together, closer to each other. It is an important management function closely associated with all other managerial functions and bridges the gap between individuals and groups through flow of information and understanding between them. Information is the most vital aspect for communication. It is the information which is transmitted, studied, analyzed, and interpreted and stored. The manager therefore has to spare time to collect, analyze, and store the information for decision-making and routine day-to-day business.
Informative communication. Informative speaking generally centers on talking about people, events, processes, places, or things. Informing an audience about one of these subjects without being persuasive is often a difficult task to complete. For example, a speech informing an audience about growing peace lilies as a houseplant might ultimately persuade the audience to buy and grow peace lilies. All speech has an effect that might enable individuals to persuade themselves. The line walk during an informative speech, as opposed to a persuasive speech, is to not make persuasion an explicit and obvious goal. An informative speech on peace lilies might cover both the advantages and disadvantages of these houseplants. A persuasive speech would take a firm position on the virtues of peace lilies. Example, informative speeches, presentation, reports, informative essay, and visual aids.
Persuasive communication. Persuasive communication is any message that is intended to shape, reinforce, or change the responses of another or others. One such responses are modified by symbolic transaction or messages, which are sometimes but not always linked with cursive force or indirectly cursive, and which appeal to the reason and emotion of the target. Generally, persuasion refers to such communicative activities that are meditated. Example, research and business proposals, and persuasive messages. Argumentative communication. Argumentation is a social process having an argument involves two or more individuals responding to one another's claim and support for such a claim. Arguments is not simply stating the same claims and reasons. Rather, it is supporting, modifying, or defending position accordingly. As a process, arguments unfold based on the contribution of the dialogue participants. Argumentation aims to gain adherence from the audience. People argue to gain assent for their position. The world is filled with ambiguous situations that arguments attempt to render more certain. Argumentation is a listener and audience-oriented activity. Even if the audience is just one person, ultimately one wishes to persuade the audience to act on the advanced claim, whether it is the courage, action, or gain support. Example, debate, court hearings, argumentative speeches.
Type of speeches and public speaking.
Different types of speeches according to purpose. The four basic types of speech according to purpose are to inform, to instruct, to entertain, and to persuade. These are not mutually exclusive of one another. You may have several purposes in mind when giving your presentation. However, the principal purpose of a speech will generally fall into one of four basic types. Number 1. Informative. This speech serves to provide interesting and useful information to your audience. Number 2. Demonstrate. This has many similarities with an informative speech. A demonstrative speech also teaches you something. The main difference lies in including a demonstration of how to do the thing you're teaching. Number 3. Persuasive. A persuasive speech works to convince people to change in some way. They think, the way they do something, or to start doing something that they are not currently doing. Number 4. Entertaining. The after-dinner speech is a typical example of an entertaining speech. The speaker provides pleasure and enjoyment that make the audience laugh or identify with anecdotal information. Read. The speech is written and the speaker reads it word for word to the audience. Originally, it was done from the handwritten paper manuscript. This is when a speaker reads a pre-written speech word by word to an audience. It is when an already prepared script is read verbatim. The speaker makes the entire speech by referring to the printed document or as seen on the teleprompter. It is basically an easy method of oral communication. Memorize. The memorized style of speaking is when the manuscript is committed to memory and recited to the audience verbatim or word for word. In the days when elocution was taught, this was a typical approach. A speech was a recitation. The Optimists Club or a national organization used to have a oratory contest for high school students. Contestants wrote essays on a given theme to create a speech at a specific time length of 3 minutes. The essay was memorized and the delivery was judged. The quality of the writing
and the accuracy with which it was recited, and the precise length of time. Such contests seem archaic by today's more casual and somewhat less formal standards.
Impromptu. Theoretically, an impromptu speech is made up on the spot. It is unprepared and unrehearsed. Often, ceremonial toasts, grace before meals, an acknowledgement, an introduction, offering thanks, and so on fall into this category. While there are some occasions when a speech in those categories is actually prepared, like prepare your acceptance for the academic award before you are called. There are many occasions when there is little or no opportunity to prepare. Impromptu speech are generally short and are often given with little or no notice. Notes are rare and the speaker generally look indirectly at the audience. It will be presumptuous and arrogant to declare rules for impromptu speaking. It is fair to explain that impromptu describes a range from absolutely no preparation to a modest amount of preparation or mostly thought, and rarely incorporate research or the formalities of outlines and citation that more formal speeches would include. Extemporaneous, sandwiched between the memorized and impromptu delivery style, you find the extemporaneous speech style. For this style, the speech is not completely written out. It is usually delivered with keynotes for reference. Most public speaking courses and books describe extemporaneous speeches as carefully prepared and rehearsed, but delivered using notes of keywords and phrases to support the speaker. Phrasing is pre-rehearsed, words are pre-chosen, and the organization is fluid and well constructed. There should be no fumbling for words, no rumbling, and length of time should be carefully monitored. This style does offer the speaker flexibility to include references to immediate surroundings, previous speeches, news of the day, and so on. Thank you for listening. Hope you have learned for today's topic.